Al Jazeera podcasts.
Today, President Trump promises de-escalation of ICE activity in Minnesota.
They declared war on my state. They declared war in my city.
How community organizers are still showing up day after day to protect their neighbors from ICE. I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Hey everyone. Today's episode is a heavy one. So as you're watching, let us know what it evokes for you. What do you make of what's happening in Minnesota? And if you're listening to this on a podcast app, leave us a review and a rating. It helps other people find the show.
I'm Marcia Howard. I'm a high school teacher of 27 years in South Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm also the president of the teachers chapter of Minneapolis Federation of Educators, Local 59. And I'm a neighbor and a steward of George Floyd Square, which is a memorial and protest site that sprung up after the lynching of George Floyd on May 25, 2020.
Well, Marcia, welcome to The Take. It's good to have you here, although the circumstances are not. You are speaking to me from your home in Minneapolis, a city that's been in the headlines and seemingly at the heart of the Trump administration's latest immigration crackdown. And I know that your city is in mourning, and it's not the first time.
Minneapolis residents gathering at a makeshift shrine for Alex Pretti, the second U.S. citizen killed by federal officers in Minnesota in less than a month.
In the Twin Cities, ICE is everywhere. And every day, a deluge of headlines. The detention of a 5-year-old. An internal memo authorizing ICE officers to enter homes without a judge's warrant. A court suspending a decision barring federal officers from using tear gas against peaceful protesters. The federal surge is reshaping these cities in Minnesota.
The news of the day is de-escalation. But before we talk about that, we need to talk about the escalation that led to this. So set the scene for me. What has this past week looked like for you and your neighbors?
This past week actually has been tumultuous. There was a sense of community that we fomented with the cooperation and organization from the ICE Out Now Minnesota Truth and Freedom Day march that you saw on Friday, January 23rd, where we said no shopping, no schools, no work.
They came by the thousands to oppose what they call the occupation of their city by federal immigration agents.
We needed this occupational force from the federal government out of our streets because they have been doing the most outrageous, egregious acts of cruelty against the neighbors, the citizens, the immigrants, the business owners, the students of Minneapolis and St. Paul and St. Louis Parks, the suburbs, the city. I am not, hold on one second. Stop this. I am a very good interview, but right now I'm like, I should have emotionally prepared myself for this. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Take your time.
Okay. Do me a favor. Would you like me to set the scene for the audience of what the turmoil has been like? Because this is how
I want you to just set the scene via your vantage point. And if you will allow it, I really think that you should take us into what you're feeling, because I can see the trauma on your face. So I think you should bring us there as much as you feel comfortable with,
okay,
via your viewpoint. But take your time.
Okay. There's a saying that we've had at George Floyd Square since the uprising, that a day is a week and a week is a month.
Mm.
And things are happening so quickly in this city that we can't even keep days straight. You need to understand that from when Renee Good was murdered by deputized former military turned federally immune ICE agent.
Mm.
Several things happened right after that. The school that I taught at for 25 years was turned into a photo op / brutal invasion against students and staff. We're armed with whistles and our phones, making sure that students are safe going to class. And then they escalated the brutality. Every single day, they taunted us from their rental trucks. They would do things like the agents that they brought to the Twin Cities, these hapless, untrained, overly militarized agents, were in hotel rooms where they did not detain the workers in those hotel rooms because they wanted to be served by immigrants.
Mm.
To go to a restaurant, eat, pay for their meal, and then detain the waiter that served them.
Wow.
And I just keep hearkening back to my life before I moved to this state as an African-American woman from the state of Arkansas. And all I keep thinking is that everything old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
That although people keep thinking about jackbooted thugs and Gestapo and Bovino is cosplaying as a Nazi officer, I'm thinking about slave catchers. I'm thinking about the Klan. This last week, the past 2 weeks, has been a nightmare.
Mm.
Pretending to be give me a second, okay?
Sure.
This
Yeah,
was
sure.
not what I planned, okay? Hold up. Girl, you the first person to make me break.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Month. I have not broken all month. Give me a second.
Yeah, of course. Take some water. I'm going to do some too. All right. Okay, I'm going to share a little bit more sausage making with you.
Yes,
We
go
have to
ahead.
decide how much of that, we don't want to be gratuitous, so we have to decide how much of that we'll include, because we're not going to include the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know.
You figure it out once we continue. That's this.
Okay.
If I gave it to you, it's yours. But
Okay. Okay.
it is what
All right,
it is.
thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know. I think you know what it is I think you're the first black face I've
I
talked
thought
to.
so. Yes. I
I'm
believe
like,
so.
God damn it.
It's okay. I saw it. I saw it coming from a...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. How would
Okay.
I describe the last week? Is that was the question. You know, on Friday, of last week. It was a momentous day. They say 50 to 70,000 folks were in the streets for the March for Truth and Freedom. And I'm proud to say that I was in the truck on a bullhorn, on a microphone, leading that march through downtown to show folks that we were unified in wanting ICE out of Minnesota. But the very next day, as I was at the morning meeting at George Floyd Square, we got the message that an observer was shot on 26th and Nicollet. And so I jumped in my car and we went over there, and in the confrontation with the ICE officers and the Custom and Border Patrol and ERO officers, they deployed chemical weapons while we were standing there. And my voice got scoured by the pepper spray. So in the last few days, since we've been outside protesting the murder of Alex Pretti, chemical weapons have continued to be deployed. And full disclosure, I am a retired Marine non-commissioned officer. I know from some pepper spray, gas. Like what they are doing on the streets of Minneapolis is akin to what we practice in Parris Island in what they call Wartown. And I'm gonna be frank, This felt like they brought troops in here to train against us.
Marcia, I just want to make it very clear for our audience because, we started emotionally, but you're a person who joined the Marine Corps at 17 years old during a time of war. So the things you have seen, the things you've experienced, the things you have lived through, the fact that what we're seeing right now is really, I can see it on your face how it's affecting
They declared war on my state. They declared war in my city. They are treating my neighbors like enemy combatants. That is the unmitigated truth.
We'll have more with Marcia after the break. So I want to share the fact that there are lots of administration folks walking in and around Minneapolis. So Kristi Noem, who's the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, and also Greg Bovino. So Greg Bovino, he works for the Border Patrol, former commander-at-large and current Border Patrol agent. Now, there's been a little bit of a leadership shift, a change in management, if you will. This week, President Donald Trump replaced Gregory Bovino, who had been leading the city's immigration operations, and now Trump is sending in his border czar, Tom Homan. On Tuesday, Trump praised him while also promising something.
We have Tom Homan there now. We put him in there. He's great. And they met with the governor, the mayor, everybody else, and we're going to de-escalate a little bit.
We're going to de-escalate a little bit. But I want to play a clip of Homan speaking about immigration enforcement to Fox News 2 weeks ago and get your take on this.
We're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are.
What do you make of all of this?
First and foremost, taking out Bovino is not value added, in my opinion, because that is what the system does. So it does not matter to me that they replaced someone that was easy to joke and dunk on with someone in a suit. Secondly, the notion that people that are actively engaged in ICE Watch, in being vigilant in protecting our neighbors, in signal chat groups, running plates in their cars, doing patrols, that somehow we're ashamed of that activity. that somehow you could call our bosses or show our faces and then we would be shunned by our community. Our bosses are in the Signal chats with us. Our elected officials are in the chats with us. Our nanas, the hockey coaches, the soccer moms, everybody that's anybody is doing the work of protecting our neighbors, because that's how we show up in Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's how we show up as neighbors in Minnesota. And that's why they can't break us. They picked the wrong state to mess with. They did. They need to admit it. And that's why that escalation is about to turn into de-escalation.
Well, I want to get your take on one of those elected officials, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, because we're talking about this potential de-escalation. And last week, Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote a letter to Tim Walz, and in it, she demanded that Walz hand over Medicaid and Food and Nutrition Services programs data, repeal sanctuary policies, and allow access to Minnesota's voter registration records and voter rolls. She said it was for law and order. Now, Walz has already rejected it. What do organizers like you and those who are out in the streets with, what do you make of this back and forth?
I don't always see eye to eye with Governor Tim Walz. We say at George Floyd Square that it's hard to square with someone who's ordered the National Guard on you before 2020. But I will say, I think I agree with him on this, that it's a desperate attempt by the federal government to try to hang some veneer of legitimacy on what they were doing. We all know that what this targeted attempt to intimidate and punish Minnesota was always about. It's about our social programs. It's about our dogged attempt at being cooperative and compassionate toward our fellow neighbor. We have one of the largest populations of Somali folk outside of Somalia and Somaliland. We have one of the largest population of Hmong folk outside of Southeast Asia. We have one of the largest urban population of Native Americans in the United States. Black folks have come to the state and thrived from points all over: Chicago, Nebraska, East St. Louis, Iowa. They came here and thrived. They mad at Minnesota because of the resources we got. We've always had a surplus. And you know what we did with our surplus? We didn't lose it to fraud. Universal free lunch. We have programs just like that. And they're mad. If they can break Minnesota, they can say, oh, that egalitarian Scandinavian welfare state stuff doesn't work. I moved here 30 years ago. And I'm a Southern Black girl, y'all. I'm Black, right? And I'm home.
Marcia, you say you're home. And I know that because it's your home, it's likely why you felt like you needed to be out in the streets after Derek Chauvin, a white police officer, killed George Floyd, a Black man, in 2020. And so there are pictures and images of you at George Floyd Square, day in and day out, marking that place and turning it into this community space. So you've mentioned the Signal chats and the messaging and what neighbors are doing. Can you bring me into that? What has that day-to-day organizing amongst people look like now in this day?
We have stood at the corner of 38 and Chicago Avenue since the day George Floyd was lynched. And I remember that day, I heard that hullabaloo because it happened 263 steps from my front door. A former student of mine filmed his death. And I went outside and I stayed out there. And I didn't go back to school. I didn't go back to work. Not that year, not the next year. We took over city blocks and said we would not be moved. And I have gotten death threats ever since.
Wow.
Because that has not been replicated. We sat there and continue to sit there and have community meetings every single day at 8 a.m., 7 p.m. at night. And we organize and mobilize. And we don't just sit there. We make sure that we're paying rent for folk. We are feeding and clothing people. We are giving trainings to people. And we're looking at each other face to face. We don't meet on Facebook. Face to face. We don't go on Nextdoor. We go next door. Because we have to look at each other and know who we fighting for. And that is what you've seen. And that is why folks are being organized in Minneapolis. They picked the wrong state. Everybody has learned since 2020 how to do this. And we are going to use that to protect our vulnerable neighbors.
Well, finally, Marcia, I don't want to take too much of your time because I know where you would like to be. When we look forward, what do you want to happen next?
I need people to grapple with the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is a new agency and ICE is a new agency. Like new. SpongeBob SquarePants era, new. I've owned this house longer than ICE has been an agency. It's not necessary. We're going to always need Customs and Border Patrol. Yeah, we will. We're going to need somebody to check if somebody's coming through the border with a bazooka, right? But what we not going to need is for the agents being brought as an extrajudicial brute squad to intimidate the people of this nation. We don't need that. We don't. Immigrants make our country better. And unless you are native or chattel enslaved descendant, you don't got a leg to stand on. You need to understand that ICE can and should be abolished. There are those who say that America is only waking up because 2 white people died. But we've always said Black liberation is for the liberation of everybody. Everything that they have done to Indigenous and Black people will eventually be done to everyone else. Everything that the empire does to other countries will be done to every citizen here. It's not which one comes first. It's a cycle. It's a pattern. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And I recognize this beat.
Marcia, thank you so much for this conversation, for allowing us to see how raw and real it is to be in Minneapolis right now. I really appreciate it.